Hello, everybody. I'm going to talk about my interdimensional and NDE experiences. Starting off in 1967, I was 3 years old. I was living at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. And at night, this creature would come in my room, and it was reptilian looking. I couldn't tell you if it was a dream or a nightmare or I was actually awake. But one certain night, I asked it its name, and I was actually speaking to it, not with my mouth, but with my mind. And it said Nikki, and this is, I guess, telepathy. And so, it continued happening, and then it started like touching me. Sometimes it would come up and like pat me on the face. Other times, I won't tell you what it did, but it was not nice where it touched me.
Mhm.
And that went on, not too often, but it happened, the years we lived there in 67. And then we got orders to move, and so we're leaving to go to move to Colorado. And we stopped at the Holiday Inn in Terre Haute, Indiana. And I was at the swimming pool, and I'm climbing around the edge of the pool. And I get to the deep end, and I start climbing down the ladder. And I misjudged the last step. And the next thing you know, I'm sinking to the bottom like a rock. And as I was going down, I held my breath as long as I could, and my lungs just finally burst. And when I let the air out, I started yelling, "Help me! Help me!" And I remember this cartoon from when I was a kid of the bubbles popping off on the surface, and it's saying, help me!" popping out. So that was it. And the next thing I know, I went black. And then after that, all of a sudden, I woke up and I'm looking down at my body on the bottom of the pool. And I can see my hair waving around back and forth. And I was like, I really didn't know what was going on. And all of a sudden, I felt like a presence behind me. And I whipped around, and there was this skeletal looking cloak figure with a sickle grimacing at me. And I didn't know what to make of that either, 3 years old. And then all of a sudden, the creature looked up towards the surface, and I followed its gaze and looked up towards the surface, and I see like a gray blob coming at me, which I thought was a whale, and then a dolphin, and next thing I know, I black out again, and after that, I just remember vomiting on the pool deck. I guess somebody resuscitated me, my mom or a bystander, and from there, the incidences started happening in Colorado Springs, where it was the reptilian, but I never really saw it, but it was still doing the same thing, touching me, and that went on till for 3 years. I lived there from '67 to 1970. But when I was 5 at the Air Force Academy, I was actually living on base housing, and one night I woke up in like a military doctor's office, and I was screaming for my mom, and I didn't know if it was a dream or real, but I remember there being military doctors in white lab coats and stainless steel all around, and like these tall gray aliens. And I just remember the aliens were like holding their heads, like my screaming was hurting them. And then all of a sudden, one of the gray aliens came up to me with like a wand, and the next thing you know, I'm blacked out. I don't know what happened there, but I remember leaving, and I remember seeing people in a waiting room, like looking at me like in horror. And after that, I began to get transported back to my room. I remember flying through the air thinking I'm an astronaut. And then, I was like, my second thought was like, oh man, I'm going to hit the ground and die. So instead of me hitting the concrete in my mind, the thought of water, landing on water came into my mind, and I still thought I was going to die. And the very next thing after that, I imagined me landing on a bed of feathers. And then next thing you know, I hit the bed, and all these feathers fly up around me. And I just woke straight up, bolted straight up, sitting upright. And what got me is strange is that I never slept on my back. I always slept on my stomach. And so the fact that I woke up on my back straight up told me that, this was, more than a dream. And the next morning, I felt like, I don't know how a 5-year-old could feel like they're on drugs, but I was so groggy walking down the hall. And, I just knew something happened. I went up to Mom, I was like, Mom, why didn't you help me? Where were you? And she, oh, you just had a nightmare, son. And so we moved off housing, and the I guess you call them the attacks kept happening. And as soon as we moved out of there in 1970, that was the end. Never happened again. So those are my little stories.
All right. Thank you for sharing, Doug.
Interesting.